Well, thank you for joining a little bit early. We'll be getting started in about 9 minutes. And thanks for joining a little early. We'll be getting started in about 6 minutes. And thank you all for joining a little ahead of schedule. We'll be getting started in about 3 minutes.
Alrighty, hello everyone. It is 8 p.m. Current president of the WCHA's Board of Directors, and I would like to welcome all of you to tonight's annual membership meeting. A couple of housekeeping notes. This presentation is not pre-recorded, but it is being recorded so that we can archive it. The nature of this gathering is such that we can't really have a live back and forth question and answer, sort of a discussion session, but you are welcome to present questions, which we would be happy to attempt to answer. If you look at your GoToWebinar control panel, near the very bottom, there's a box that says type message here. And if you type a message in there and send it, it will be received by the organizers, and we will certainly address questions at the end of the presentation. Thank you to Benson Gray, who is managing this electronically, and also with us tonight are members of the Board of Directors, and also Annie Burke, our Executive Director, who will join in for questions and answers at the end if needed. So again, thanks everyone for being here. To discuss the state of the WCHA. I'm seeing a rapid rise in the number of attendees, and I think that's wonderful. The fact that you are here indicates your commitment to this fine organization, and I couldn't be happier about that. So let's get started. So the first thing is I would like to thank some of our people, and please forgive me if anyone's name is not in this presentation tonight, who should be, but we are a membership organization and largely composed of volunteers, so it is us who make this organization run, and let's all thank each other for that. But a few people in particular. Annie Burke, of course, is our Executive Director. She literally is the home office of the WCHA, and we couldn't do what we do without her. So always a huge thanks to Annie. Chris Eden is the editor of the Wooden Canoe Journal. Colleen Hovey serves as our webmaster. Jeannie Griffin Green manages our store. She receives your orders and processes them and gets them out to you. So many thanks there, of course. Nick Dennis has recently joined us as our social media person. He is keeping us alive in the hearts and minds of people around the world through Facebook, Instagram, and platforms such as that. Benson Gray does so many different things for us. Again, he is orchestrating the meeting tonight. He is our immediate past webmaster and our immediate past social media guru. Jim and Betsy Wilson are our calendar editors and producers. More on that shortly. Sheldon Perry manages our elections of board members. And if you haven't noticed, that is going on now. So we'll speak again about that in a few minutes. Al Bratton is the coordinator of our Historians Network. And we'll speak more about it, assembly, but in normal years, Rob Stevens serves as our assembly coordinator. Mary Gold and Lily Welch run the children's programs. Fran Sinkwitz serves as the auction coordinator. Jack Middleton, in recent years, has served as an outstanding assembly auctioneer. And of course, there are a host of other people who aid in production of our in-person assemblies. And finally, I want to make sure to thank all of our members everywhere. Again, we are a membership organization, and we wouldn't exist if it weren't for the continued support of you and everyone else who remains a member of this organization. So our 2021 board of directors consists of 10 people total, of course, myself serving as president. Colleen Hovey, our webmaster, also serves as our vice president. Pete Shea does an outstanding job as our secretary, and the rest of our board includes Mark Adams, Nick Dombrowski, Barclay Ford, Deborah Gardner, Annie Harris, Bill Van Kuren, and of course, Annie Burke, again, our executive director. This is a wonderful group of people. Everyone works together in a very cordial manner, and we all work to make collective decisions that are in the best interests of the WCHA. You can also be a part of this. As I said before, now is the time that you should be considering running for a position on the board. In the latest issue of Wooden Canoe, there is an announcement. You can write a short description of yourself and your interest in serving. And if you have any questions, you can certainly get in touch with any one of us who are currently on the board or any of our past board members who can tell you what life is like on the board. Generally, it's very rewarding, I believe. You're having fun, doing your best for this organization. I'll tell you, there aren't any real perks, but that's okay. I think the main perk is just the satisfaction of doing something very meaningful. So again, see the current issue of Wooden Canoe, number 223. On page 4, you'll find a description of how you too can put your name in the running for a position on the board of directors, and the election will be held later this year for terms to begin in January of 2022. So down to the business of the WCHA. Most important, I believe, always is membership. And I have used this graphic before. I prepared it last year to show the trend of membership over the course of time. And we, like many membership organizations over the past 2 decades, have seen a relatively steady decline in membership. Sorry about that. We had been at a high of about 1,800 members 20 years ago, and again, a fairly steady decline, except during the years between 2011 and 2016, a variety of membership drives were conducted, and they were more or less successful. They really were outstanding efforts and very creative. Unfortunately, the effects of those membership drives, even though they did bring in new members, they were temporary. And the good news, though, is that it seems that lately we have stabilized at around a membership number of 1,300 or so. In fact, I believe we've actually increased a bit over this. This was early 2020. So for the rest of 2020 and for now for most of 2021, not shown here, but we are right around 1,300 members. So hopefully we have stabilized. Part of this might be due to our online presence, our increased online presence, and other initiatives that we've taken to try to change the face of the WCHA a bit without, of course, changing our fundamental mission. We have had some new lifetime members in the last year and a half or so, so that's nice. They do bring in some much needed cash to the organization. But again, they also really illustrate their commitment to the organization by joining as a lifetime member. So thank you to all of those 6 new lifetime members over the past year and a half or so. So one of the constant questions that we ask ourselves on the board and we discuss amongst ourselves when members get together is how do we grow our membership, or how do we at least stabilize our membership? And short of all of the things that we currently do, including social media, our website, rack cards in various venues, the journal itself, a lot of different ways of trying to reach out to people. We have discussed on the board options including broadening the scope of the journal and perhaps even broadening the scope of the WCHA. But I can assure you that no one wants to broaden it considerably, but rather think about being more inclusive of things like the Adirondack guideboat crowd, or reaching out in a stronger manner to builders of modern stripper canoes, things like that might broaden our appeal without detracting from our commitment to the mission that we have maintained ever since our inception in the 1970s. Also, we might look at and we've considered ways of reaching out to the broader woodworking community, bring our message to the broader boating community. There may be opportunities for growth there, and of course, new creative membership drives. One of the things, though, that is not on the slide, I think, is not just recruitment of new members, but retention of existing members. We actually get a surprisingly high number of new members each year, but at least now that influx of new members is balanced by loss of existing members. We are an aging population to some degree, and we do lose some people to death, unfortunately, but the vast majority of our losses are people who simply don't renew their memberships. So I think that is a trend that we would really like to see reversed, if at all possible. All right, so our financial status obviously stems from membership, since we are a membership organization, but it is not the only source of finances for the WCHA. The most important take-home message here is that we found ourselves in an unsustainable financial position over the last 8 or so years, and it was actually very worrisome. The graph on the right shows our net income by year as an organization. So this is all of our income minus all of our costs. And you can see beginning in 2013, almost year by year, we saw a dramatic loss of funds. And that loss became fairly large, nearly $20,000 in 2017. And it was about this time that we began a very concerted effort to reverse this trend. We had always been concerned about this, but we worked very actively to reverse this. In 2018, we put together a strategic plan, and even while we were putting that plan together, we began the process of trying to reverse this trend. And the great news is that it seems to have been highly successful so far. So through a concerted effort by the board of directors that involved things like cost cutting, streamlining of efforts, a reasonable revision of the dues structure, and fundraising, we were able to go from net losses almost every year to dramatic net gains. And again, this data is through 2020, and 2021 looks to be on the same track. So I think we have really turned a corner, and we are doing much, much better. We're now on sound financial footing. We have strong cash reserves, which are very important in case we do run into years where we find ourselves in a loss situation. We had depleted an investment account that we held. This investment account was actually started with the inception of these lifetime memberships. Unfortunately, we had to draw from that investment account multiple times over the course of these years when we were so far in the red, but we have been rebuilding that investment account, and through effective investment management, we have seen that account grow dramatically over the course of this last year and a half. So again, we're back on sound financial footing. We just need to make sure that it stays that way. And a few details, I mentioned life members. We had 4 new lifetime members in 2020. We have 2 new ones thus far in 2021. And we've also we did a fundraiser back in late 2019, but we've also done basically a soft, continuous push for donations, no matter how small, no matter how large. And that has been very successful. For example, you'll find a donate button in multiple places on the website. When you check out when placing an electronic order, you can add a little to your order if you wish. And these kinds of things and other things have been remarkably successful. So thus far in 2021, we've already brought in more than $4,000 in donations through these mechanisms, which is really absolutely wonderful. Our calendar is a great fundraiser each year. I'll speak a bit more on it later, but the 2021 calendar sold out, and we're already seeing very robust sales of the 2022 calendar, which was produced in July, and will certainly be sold through the end of this year or until they run out, whichever comes first. Interestingly, we have seen strong store sales this year. Merchandise sales are up over this time last year, which is, again, a nice thing considering that we're in the middle of a pandemic. And we just hosted a virtual assembly for the first time back in July, and that cost us absolutely nothing. So good news there. Bottom line, we are again on sound financial footing. So a little bit more about the assembly. In 2020, we canceled the assembly altogether. One of the things that we worried about during that year was that we would suffer significant financial losses because of the loss of the assembly. Everyone should know that the assembly itself is not a fundraiser. We manage it very carefully to make sure that we don't lose money on assembly, but every year we basically break even. The costs that every one of us pays to attend assembly balance the costs that assembly incurs, things like dorm rooms and food and tent rental and chair rental and things like that, the fees that Paul Smith charges for use of their facilities. However, we did lose store sales, and store sales are dramatic at assembly, and we lost any raffles that we might have held, which are fundraisers at assembly. So that was unfortunate, but as you saw from the previous graph, we still managed to bring the WCHA finances for 2020 back into the black. So it was actually a very good year, particularly given the loss of assembly store sales and the loss of the raffle. So how about 2021? This was a very different year with a virtual assembly, and one of the greatest things about that virtual assembly is the fact that we made a proof of concept here by holding something in a very different way than we had ever done before. I'll speak a bit about it later, but I think it was highly successful, and I think that because it was electronic, it will live on in multiple ways. It also put us on a global stage. It brought assembly-style content to people throughout the world who otherwise couldn't have attended assembly or wouldn't have for whatever reason. So it really was a platform for us to showcase the WCHA on a scale that we had never utilized before. And 2021 the assembly turned out to have a significant financial impact in the sense that it didn't cost us anything to put on. We didn't have to worry about balancing the books. Everyone who presented, everyone who organized, everyone who helped electronically did so out of the goodness of their hearts for the benefit of this organization. We did have a net gain because we did hold our annual, usually annual, WCHA quilt auction, more about that later. And we had a very strong kickoff of calendar sales during the assembly. So the impacts of 2020 were essentially neutral. The impact of the 2021 virtual assembly were actually financially positive. So more good news. Briefly, and I certainly won't go through all of this, but I just wanted to mention the tremendous amount of effort that went into production of this virtual assembly. If you just attend, you don't realize how many hours all of these people put into the production of their programs. Many presented live, some presented virtually, pre-recorded presentation, and were there for question and answer. But no matter how it was done, everyone really put a tremendous amount of effort into production of these great stories. For example, the history of canoeing in Toronto. The Women Canoe Builder Symposium was really phenomenal. Great thing, showcase a group of our outstanding builders from across the U.S. and Canada. Canoe photography, shop tours from Jerry Stelmach and Roland Thurlow, restoring an Adirondack guideboat. There was really something for everything, and honestly, the quality of what was presented here was certainly no worse and perhaps better than what we normally see at a regular in-person assembly. Really just a great set of evenings this past summer. And I also want to mention that at the actual assembly, we normally have a wonderful paddle by and salute where people bring their favorite boats out onto the water. There's an announcer who tells you all about them. If you haven't experienced it, it really is something that you must experience at some point. Alex Guthrow actually put this together for us again this year in a virtual format by having people video themselves with their canoes, either on the water or not. And he organized this into a wonderful symposium. I think even if you've never seen the paddle by, this parade of canoes is certainly inspirational, certainly had me wanting to be out on the water in many of the wonderful places I saw and paddling many of the wonderful canoes that I saw paddled. Really a wonderful event. If you missed it, it is still available. The various presentations have been archived on the Wooden Canoe Heritage Association's YouTube channel. So you can search for this, and all of the various presentations are here ready for you to enjoy anytime, anywhere. So let me just give a shout out and a big thanks to the virtual assembly planning and execution team. Rob Stevens, our usual assembly coordinator, maintained his role, and he was supplemented by a new group of people and gave some of our regulars a break this year. I'm sure a very much needed break. But our team included Andy Burke, Mark Adams, Nick Dombrowski, Deborah Gardner, myself, and Benson Gray. Really a heroic effort. We had very regular meetings, had a lot of serious discussions, and made some big decisions that I think all came together to make a wonderful virtual assembly 2021. So what does the future hold? Well, next year, we hope to be back in person with each other at a traditional assembly, but we hope that this and a couple of other programs we did in the previous year might be the basis for bringing more online content to global audiences interested in wooden canoes, whether they are members or not. And of course, hopefully that would drive an increase in membership. We are still in discussion about how an online program might include assembly content in the future. And of course, one question is how much and how is it presented? When is it presented? But these are thoughts in the works, and I believe it's safe to say that the future of the WCHA will certainly include more online content given the successes that we have had recently. So for 2022, first of all, this poster was designed for a 2021 in-person assembly, but the point is that we hope to return to an in-person assembly next year. Planning for that is already underway. The dates are already set as July 12 through 17, 2022. I believe that's correct. It should be a Tuesday through a Saturday, and it will be held at Paul Smith's, New York. Paul Smith College, which was our planned venue for 2020, held our deposit over to 2021. And when 2021 wasn't going to happen, they again agreed to hold our deposit over at no cost so that we are set for an in-person assembly at 2021. We haven't lost anything financially, and we are already on their books and ready to go. And again, one big question is about the possibility of at least partial digital availability of the assembly next summer. So everyone cross your fingers, everyone stay well, everyone get vaccinated, and let's see each other next summer in the Adirondacks. Since we're on the assembly, one of the real fundraisers of the assembly is the annual quilt raffle. And again, that was put on hold in 2020, but we decided we really wanted to resurrect it for 2021. The quilt was already done, and we decided to make a concerted effort to make it successful. Even though we weren't there, people wouldn't be able to see the quilt or touch the quilt, but it's just amazing. I think we had the best year that we have ever had. We sold 486 raffle tickets, an all-time high, bringing in total proceeds of $2,430, all of which goes toward the sound financial future for our organization and, of course, operational costs today and tomorrow. I want to congratulate our member winner, Mackie Mongold of St. Petersburg, Florida, who won this wonderful quilt. I'm not sure that he is using it quite yet on the Gulf of Mexico down on the peninsula of Florida, but he will this winter, I'm sure. And I won't name all of these names. They're also in the journal, but our team of dedicated quilters, we just can't thank enough. Many of these people have done this for many years, but it really is a great effort on the part of some truly dedicated WCHA people to produce the beautiful quilt that is in this image on screen now. So thank you to all of those people for a great fundraiser and camaraderie within the WCHA. So let's shift gears just a bit. A quick note about the journal. We are now at issue number 223 of Wooden Canoe. I think that is a phenomenal milestone. I remember when I couldn't even imagine we would cross over issue number 200, and we are already a quarter of a century, 23 issues, beyond 200. This newest issue represents our 7th under our recently appointed editor, Chris Eden. And the journal is still undergoing continuous improvement based upon reader suggestions, so please don't hesitate to write to your editor. We have put together a new rate structure for display ads in the journal. It's a relatively modest increase in rates, but we think it helps bring us a bit more in line with where we should be for the size and distribution numbers of our journal, and it helps cover more of the cost of production of the journal. We are also attempting to recruit new advertisers and potentially use the revenue from that new advertising to grow the page count of the journal, perhaps even significantly. And as far as content, for the last couple of years, we've had a very nice, very steady stream of submissions from people around the world. And I would invite you and encourage you to submit your own stories and your own artwork. I can't tell you how many times I meet people who say, well, I'm not a writer, I'm not a photographer, but we can certainly help you work some magic. The most important thing are all of the wonderful stories out there. And we really hope that everyone will consider sharing their trip stories, their restorations, their new builds, their paddling techniques, their destinations, whatever their interest in history, anything that you may have that you think is interesting, you can almost guarantee that others of us among the membership will also be interested in those stories as well. So please consider submitting for publication. I mentioned the calendar earlier. Again, Jim and Betsy Wilson do a wonderful job of putting this together every year, and it serves as another important fundraiser for the WCHA. In 2021, we sold out of calendars. I believe, I'm not completely sure, but at least in my memory, this is the first time we have sold out of calendars. And in fact, we did so prior to the start of the new year. So it's unfortunate if orders weren't placed early enough, but you have a chance now for the 2022 calendar. Sales are very strong already. We have shipped out 126 calendars to commercial outlets for resale. We have sold at least 113 through online and phone sales already. So the bottom line is, because these and some other mechanisms of distribution, nearly 60% of the calendars are already gone, and we're just in the beginning of September. So I would strongly encourage anyone who wants one to order now. I personally ordered 5 copies myself, so I could give away 4 as gifts. So you might consider that as well. I think they truly do make a fine gift for anyone, and they are great ambassadors for our organization by hanging beautifully on people's walls for the entire coming year. So I was going to try to list some of the chapter activities that are going on, but there have been some going on, but not very many because of the pandemic. The chapters themselves and chapter activities are certainly important to the success and to the mission of the WCHA. These local activities generate regional enthusiasm. They keep people interested and excited about canoe building, canoe restoration, paddling, getting out and socializing together. And they keep people supporting our professional builders and suppliers. So we can't say enough about the importance of chapters. We truly want chapters to be successful. We want people to be happy members of chapters. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we've seen a dramatic decrease in the number of activities, whether they be in our smaller chapters or in our largest chapters. But some chapters are coming out with more and more activities these days, sometimes socially distanced paddling events. We've seen some wonderful canoe restoration workshops doing some great things and having a lot of fun together. So I hope that we will have more positive to say about the ability of chapters to get together and do great things with each other as the months continue on. So thank you to everyone who is maintaining the chapters and staying enthusiastic even when we are relatively separated from each other. So you may know that we launched a fairly ambitious strategic plan, a 5-year plan that was slated to run from 2019 to 2024. It is way too lengthy to show you here, but I've boiled it down into a nutshell of the 3 main strategic initiatives. The first one being financial stability for the WCHA, the second one being growth in membership, and the third being sustainability. As far as financial stability is concerned, we have certainly accomplished that in the short term, as I described to you before, and we are continuing to work on ongoing strategies for improvement to make sure that we stay on sound financial footing. As far as membership growth, again, membership numbers have stabilized, and we are continuously looking for and looking at ways to increase the rate of new members coming in and to find ways to enhance the retention of existing members. And as far as sustainability is concerned, some of these actually relate to all 3, but we've done a variety of things to try to keep the WCHA relevant in changing times. No organization can survive without change. And in these radically and rapidly changing times, we have to do whatever we can, even though we are an organization that is built on a foundation of history. And some of those new initiatives, of course, include the production of a fresh new website, the utilization of social media in new ways or better ways than we have done before, an updated look to the journal, and new revenue streams, to mention just a few. And of course, we're constantly discussing and working on strategies for long-term viability, and again, particularly in a changing world. So, in summary, the state of the WCHA is good. The organization is vibrant and healthy despite a long-lasting and highly disruptive pandemic, and despite the fact that other membership organizations, many other membership organizations, continue to suffer loss of members and loss of revenues. Membership numbers appear to have stabilized. We have relatively little data yet, but at least for a year and a half, we have seen at least a stabilization, if not a slight uptick in our membership numbers. But again, that is something that we must always be vigilant about, new members and retention of existing members. We experienced a dramatic financial reversal. We were truly operating in an unsustainable fashion for some years there, but we have turned that around in very good fashion and intend to keep it that way. We have built some bold new initiatives to revitalize the face of the organization. Again, the website, the journal, and social media platforms, and financial support and correspondence with the journal editor, with board members, and with our executive director indicate an overall satisfaction of members, users, readers of the journal with the organization. That's not to say that there's not room for improvement, and that's not to say that there isn't some dissension. Not everyone is happy with every change that is made, but we encourage everyone, no matter what your opinion is, to please send us your thoughts, your ideas, and your opinions. And of course, volunteer to help if at all possible. Serve on the board or serve in any number of other volunteer capacities to help support the organization. So with that, I will leave this alone. I think that, obviously, continued effort on the part of the board, the executive director, and some of our other people is required, but also all of us as members. Whether you serve on the board or not, whether you serve in any volunteer capacity or not, we all matter. This is our organization, and whatever we can do to make it a better organization is good for all of us. With that, I would like to say thank you, and if there are questions, we would be happy to address them.
Well, I'm looking at the list now, and Michael, you may want to turn your webcam on as well for the Q&A, but we don't have any questions at the moment. I encourage anyone who wants to type in their, looks like we're getting some feedback here. But if you want to use the question and answer section to type in and ask any questions you want. So we've got Annie on as well. And, the floor is open. As mentioned before, unfortunately, it's too large a group to be able to go to an open mic. And it's certainly not as convenient as just putting your hand up in the auditorium at Paul Smith's. But, nonetheless, I don't see anything more. Annie, do you have anything you want to add while we're waiting?
No, Michael, I think, Michael, you did an excellent presentation. You've covered all the bases. I don't know if I have anything else to add.
Well, thank you, Annie. I think it's easy to do a good job when you're serving such a wonderful organization. Again, everyone who is here because we care. So.
And we do have a quiet group, I guess. But, oh, I see we've got one hand raised, a couple of hand raised. There we go. With the success of the virtual assembly, could there be satellite mini assemblies that could be shared across the miles and throughout the year?
Certainly. We talk about the big overall assembly, the annual assembly, because it is the biggest single event that the WCHA does each year. But the value of those smaller assemblies, or whatever people choose to call them, is tremendous. And if people would like to broadcast their activities in some manner over the internet, that would be wonderful. And I think that the board, Annie, Benson, I think that we would all be delighted to share lessons that we may have learned and maybe help shepherd some of these things through if needed.
Also, occasionally there are like boat shows, and occasionally members will set up a booth at various boat shows. And these past 2 years, because of the pandemic, there's been very few of boat shows. But in normal times, people are welcome to contact me, and I can send you a stack of back issues and some membership applications if anyone wants to, set up a little booth at any boat show around the country. And that's really great for the organization when people are willing to volunteer to do that as well.
And we have another, well, first off, a statement encouraging everyone to attend mini assemblies, particularly the ones in the Mid-Atlantic area. And the other question is, have any of the chapters utilized a virtual format for their meetings and gatherings? And I believe the answer to that is yes, but I'll let others jump in with more details as appropriate.
Yeah, I think the answer is yes as well, but I don't really know any details. Annie, are you aware of?
I'm not really aware which chapters have had virtual events.
Again, I think it was the Three Rivers chapter that organized a presentation from Nick that I was aware of.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's right.
And I think there may have been others. I'm certainly not up to date on all of them, but there were quite a few.
Yeah, that's a good point. What Three Rivers did is they invited Nick Dennis in the United Kingdom to join them virtually for their assembly. So it's kind of, it's not the assembly going out to the world, but rather having someone from a distant site come and present at their assembly. And from what I heard, it was wildly successful and people really enjoyed it. So I'm sure that many people would be willing to do things like that.
We also got a question that just came in that said, how would you guys like a $10,000 donation? And I said, that sounds great. How can I help?
Yeah, excellent.
And then we also had another question that said, how many people are attending and from where? And we've been bouncing in the mid 40s. We're at 40 attendees now. And I'd have to look, I don't have all the details of where they came from, but I don't recall, we had some more detailed information about the assembly, but I didn't look through that to sort out exactly where all those people came from. But there, as you mentioned, it was a good crowd.
Yeah, for assembly, we had over 300 registrants, and we know that there were many more people viewing than that. So who knows how many people were actually attending the virtual assembly. And they came from all over the United States. I quantified the number of states, but I can't remember now, but it was more than half of the states in the US, more than half of the provinces in Canada and the UK, and I believe one other country was represented, but I can't remember. Sweden or Germany, can't remember. And that was our very first time. So hopefully, if we continue to do these sort of things, we can get bigger and broader audiences as time goes forward.
Yes, like many things, practice makes perfect. So,
right.
Well, I think we may have exhausted the questions at this point. So I will turn it back to you, Michael and Annie.
Well, I just want to say once again, thanks to everyone who joined us tonight, and thanks to everyone who serves this organization in any capacity throughout the year. And that certainly includes you, Annie.
Thank you, and thank you, Michael. You put a lot of effort into it.
Well, let's move forward. And enjoy what we enjoy and hope this pandemic gets past us soon. In the meantime, do submit your stories to Wooden Canoe. Consider serving on the board, and all of these volunteer efforts, they really are fun. I think anyone would enjoy doing these things. I certainly have throughout all the years that I've done anything volunteer with this organization. So thank you everyone, and good night.
Thank you.